afternoon and welcome to another thrilling episode of The Lyric Professors. I am Professor A and I am 10 tons of trouble on a 60-pound chain, to quote a certain Mr. Cave. With me, as always, is the Thylacine reborn Professor Dogger, and also, on the other side of the world, Professor J.
Hello.
How are things on the other side of the world, Professor J?
Very guitar-y. Very guitar-y.
How we like them.
Oh, yes.
This is obviously episode 3 on Nick Cave. It was meant to be 2, but we had to suspend episode 2 due to work commitments. So this is another short one, probably looking at 2 songs, and then we're done with Mr. Cave for the present time. So the first song we're going to do is Higgs Boson Blues. Would you like to speak on Higgs Boson Blues, Mr. Science?
Absolutely. So this is a 2013 song from his 15th album, Push the Sky Away. That's a lot of albums. And it's one of his shorter tracks, only 7 minutes 50 seconds long.
He's done lots of short tracks, I just didn't pick them.
Okay. Higgs Boson Blues. What's the Higgs boson, Professor A?
Well, my notes say it's a theoretical elementary particle. I don't believe it's theoretical anymore, is it?
That's a good question.
But it's nicknamed by the popular pressers the God particle. And it's what they were trying to discover evidence of, I believe, in the thingy in CERN near Geneva.
Hadron Collider.
That's the one, yes. Higgs boson is named after Peter Higgs, one of 6 physicists who in 1964 suggested its existence. I don't know how you do that. I've never understood how science works, really. You just say something bizarre and then it's named after you, even though it's completely theoretical and there's no proof of it for at least another 50 odd years. How does that work?
Or indeed, if it does exist at all.
Yes.
Although you have to be a dude, right? You have to be one of the top dudes to
I guess
get
so,
that sort of
thing. As you say, the Large Hadron Collider is in a tunnel. It's in a 17-mile long tunnel, this circular device. So it's a big piece of kit. Professor Dogger has a lot to say about Higgs boson blues, by the way. Let's have a quick quote from Cave about it. I was interested in the popular press's take on that experiment to find the God particle, Cave told The Sun. There was this idea that if they discovered the Higgs boson, that it would negate the existence of God. And that's basically what this song is about, to some extent. Well, it's about other things too, as we'll find out.
So he was speaking to his favourite newspaper, The Sun.
Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise. It's the first time I've seen them referenced with him.
So yeah, so for those of you who don't have a British origin, The Sun is a trashy tabloid newspaper in Great Britain. So it's surprising that someone like Nick Cave would be talking to this newspaper. Yeah, so it's the particle that ties everything together, so that the 17 miles to have a particle accelerator, you need to have 2 particles hit into each other, so they need to go, so it's just a long, fairly small aperture on which you fire some electrons and you smash them together and you watch what comes out the end. I have spent some time in other ones, specifically in the UK and in Grenoble. They're quite fun, but nothing as big as this.
Did you get to do the smashing?
No, I was looking at an offshoot, looking at X-ray for protein crystal structure.
Righty-ho.
There we go. Exciting, huh? All right, let's dive into some lyrics. Can't remember anything at all. Flamed trees lie in the streets. Can't remember anything at all, but I'm driving my car down to Geneva.
Yes. Oh, you want to stop there? Okay. Right. This, again, could be apophenia, which we mentioned.
Ooh.
We've mentioned in all 3 episodes now.
Yeah, I have.
Which is seeing, or well, say perceiving things which aren't there, seeing patterns in other things, like Jesus in a can of soup or whatever it was in mercy seat, bowl of soup. That's right. Or it can also apply to audio phenomenon. So he could.
Phenomenon.
Yes, yes. And in this case, flaming trees lining the streets. That would probably be apophenia, in that it isn't flames. Obviously, it's the colour of the leaves. Flame tree is also a species of tree native to Australia. So,
Okay.
obviously, Geneva's not in Australia. So if he was driving to Geneva from Australia, he'd need a very waterproof car.
Yes. So it's mainly the maple trees that produce the bright red leaves, and I
Yes.
believe that's because they have a slightly different type of chlorophyll in their leaves. So normally chlorophyll, which is the molecule that collects sun rays to produce energy, is green, but there is some that is red. And maple particularly has a lot of red chlorophyll. There we go. So
There you go.
driving down to Geneva.
Why do you think he can't remember anything at all? Which he tells us twice in this little section.
Oh, I don't know.
No. Yeah, don't know. Perhaps he's on drugs.
It would appear to be consistent with everything else, if you were. Okay. So carrying on. It was hot. Up above, girls walk past, roses all in bloom. Have you heard about the Higgs boson blues? I'm going down to Geneva, baby. Gonna teach it to you. I'll do another verse. Who cares? Who cares what the future brings? We came upon a crossroad. The night was hot and black. I see Robert Johnson with a $10 guitar strapped to his back, looking for a tune. Should carry
on. According to my lyrics, you missed out a line at the beginning of each of those sections.
Oh.
It should have been, I've been sitting in my basement patio. It was hot up above.
Oh, I don't have that.
And the other section was black road long, and I drove and came upon a crossroad.
Huh.
Well, there you go.
Well, there we go. So, girls walk past, roses all in bloom. So I guess that means girls reaching their sexual maturity. And it's just this questioning about the existence of God, and there were some concerns about the time that the CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, was being created, that if they did actually prove the existence of this God particle, which is the particle that's supposed to tie all the other subatomic particles together, that it would, in the word of Douglas Adams, it would make everything disappear and be replaced by something even more complicated.
Yes, and there were people who had even more strange fears than that, and there were people claiming that it would open a portal to hell. That was literally claimed by lots of people, conspiracy theorists and that kind of thing. It would in some way unmake the world.
So that will sort of bring us to the next line. So he mentions that the night is hot and black, and he sees Robert Johnson. Who's Robert Johnson, Professor A?
Robert Johnson, a blues legend, who allegedly learned to play guitar and
allegedly.
sing. Allegedly, yes. Apparently, he sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads in exchange for his musical talent and success. And he tells this story in his song Crossroad Blues.
So, I mean, I would say it's a bit more than that. I mean, he he is possibly, the one of the most important musicians in blues history and guitar history.
Yes.
And he lived a very short life. Guess how old he was when he died?
32.
No, he was 27, along with everybody
Oh,
else who died at
of
that
course.
age. So
Yes.
Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis
Kurt Cobain.
Joplin, Amy Winehouse, they were all 27. So he had a very, very short life. And in fact, his recording history was really short. So there are two, he did 2 recording sessions, which were 7 months apart.
You're going to say
And he
7 months
recorded,
long then?
and they were making 29 tracks, the most famous being Crossroads. And it tells this tale, which, I mean, there's very little information about Robert Johnson, about who he was, what he did. There's only 3 authenticated photographs of him. But the tale that follows him, but it is a tale that is repeated in various cultures, particularly African cultures, is of selling your soul to the devil. And the rumor is that he'd started guitar and he wanted to be a guitar hero. So he was told to take his guitar down to this particular crossroads at midnight and sign his soul over to the devil, who will help him become a good guitarist. And he was an excellent guitarist, considering that was recorded in 30 something. So he was amazing. So anyway, so we coming on to the whole thing about the if we find the Higgs boson particle, it will open up an avenue to the devil. So that's why we're
Yes.
talking about Robert Johnson here.
Yeah. Can I just say, before that little bit, there's another couple of lines you read out. Who cares? Who cares what the future brings? So this feels like a callback to Dig Lazarus Dig that we did in the last episode, which I believe it ends, well, close to the end. He says, what do we really know about the dead, and who cares about them anyway, or something. It's a sort of ongoing apathy, not on his part, but that he is ascribing to humanity, I think. We don't care about the dead. We don't care about this thing which will potentially make us dead. Apathy.
It's about the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look at the next line, which continues this story of Robert Johnson, presumably. Well, here comes Lucifer with his canon law. He got the real killer groove. Robert Johnson and the...
You've missed out another line there, and it's quite important.
Okay.
Did your cut and paste fail you, sir?
Potentially.
So, I'll do this little section then. Well, here comes Lucifer with his canon law and 100 black babies running from his genocidal jaw. He got the real killer groove. Robert Johnson and the devil, man. Don't know who's going to rip off who. Miss the babies in the jaw.
Yeah, I did. Wow. Okay.
Lucifer. Lucifer, of course, is identified with the devil originally in the Bible and pre-Bible religious text. Lucifer was the favorite angel of God, who either rebelled, I forget to be honest, he either rebelled or became too prideful and was ejected from heaven and fell, hence the phrase fallen angel, and then became the adversary. So Lucifer is conflated with the devil usually, and that's the case here. So here comes the devil to make his deal with Robert Johnson with his $10 guitar. And what's his canon law then? That's a journey.
Don't know.
I think what he's saying is that it's a sort of hypocrisy in that religious leaders can spout scripture, which is canon law, and that makes them holy apparently to people, But the devil is very knowledgeable about all that too. He used to be an angel. He knows all the canon law. So someone spouting scripture doesn't necessarily mean they're a good person. That's my take on it anyway. And obviously a lot of terrible things that have happened, crusades, genocides, have been done in the name of one god or other. So there you go. And what about his 100 black babies running from his genocidal jaw?
What's that about them?
Again, I think it's that genocide, racism, a lot of it's done in the name of religion. These babies of a different race to the people he's referring to, although of course Robert Johnson was black. They're running away from the devil because he's coming to eat them, and he's justifying it with scripture.
Got the real killer groove.
Absolutely, that's just a play on words, I guess, with killer meaning a great musical performance.
Being a killer. A literal performance.
Yes. And I think this the who's don't know who is going to rip off who thing is quite interesting, because in any story about these people selling their soul to the devil and making Faustian pacts, it's always the devil that's ripping off the other person. They're promising them something which they then have to pay for eternity or whatever. But I think he's suggesting here, and this isn't originally mine, I saw this on the internet, so it must be true. Maybe in this case, Robert Johnston's ripping off the devil because he's giving his soul to him, but who cares about that? What's a soul worth? That's what Nick saying. He's saying, souls of no use whatsoever, so you might as well get what you can for it. So maybe Robert Johnston's songs are worth more than a soul.
So what is the value of the soul to the devil?
I don't know. I don't know why he wants to collect all these souls and poke them in the bum with pokers for eternity. I really don't know.
You've got to have a hobby, haven't you?
So, gets him through the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Lord, let me go warm up my poker.
Probably got an array of pokers. He probably sort of opens his jacket and he's got poker after poker.
Yes, which poker shall I use today?
Yes. Yeah. Just going back to the canon law thing. There's a quote from Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice: "The devil can cite scripture for his purpose," and I think that pretty much covers this. Yes. So, who's going to rip off who?
Let's find out, shall we? So, more words. I've got a new version. Driving my car, flame trees on fire, sitting and singing the Higgs Boson blues. I'm tired. I'm looking for a spot to drop. All the clocks have stopped in Memphis now. So we've got repetition of some previous lines.
Yeah. Except the flame trees aren't just flame trees now, they're flame trees on fire. So is that just driving home the point of the leaves being coloured, or is he saying they're literally on fire as well as being coloured flame now? I mean, I get the impression that he's in some way singing about what he says. He's singing the Higgs Boson blues. Is he basing this in a situation where they have found the God particle and things are falling apart because of it?
Okay.
And that's why it's the Higgs Boson blues. I think that might be it. So things catching on fire now. He's tired. He can't remember anything at all at the start. Maybe it's just a sort of traumatic post-apocalyptic landscape now, sort of similar to what the man with the red right hand was wandering through.
And he mentions that all the clocks have stopped in Memphis now. What's that referring to, do we think?
I actually think that it's all the clocks have stopped, full stop. And then the next line is in Memphis now, comma, in the Lorraine Motel.
Okay.
I think so. I think it's the punctuation that's wrong there. But yeah, the clocks have stopped.
Right.
Could be a reference to the W.H. Auden poem, "Stop All the Clocks." I can't remember. It's famously in Four Weddings and a Funeral.
I believe it was a W. Horden poem.
W. Horden, yes.
That's what it was in.
Well, it could have been W.H. Smith's.
There's a joke in the Steve Coogan version of Four Weddings and a Funeral, which is 3 fights, 2 weddings, and a funeral. The joke about W. Horden.
Yes. Anyway, yes, that's when all clocks are stopped. Pretty much, it means time's not proceeding anymore. Everything's ended. So I think this again supports that something bad has happened because of the collider.
And all the clocks stopped references death, right? Isn't it specific to what's the quotation? Let all the clocks stop, for let them not ring out anymore, something like that.
Yeah,
it's some sort of epitaph almost, isn't it?
it's an Auden poem.
Yes. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next line. So, correcting the punctuation. In Memphis now, and the Lorraine Motel is hot. It's hot. That's why they call it the hot spot. I take a room with a view. Hear a man preaching in a language that's completely new. Making the hot cots in the flop house bleed, while the cleaning ladies sob into their mops and the bell hops and bops. As a shot rings out to a spiritual groove, everybody bleeding to the Higgs boson blues.
Yes, not easy to say. It must be even harder to sing. There's hops and bops bits. So what's the connection with the Lorraine Hotel then, Professor Joe? Can't hear you anymore. We have a technical problem, ladies and gentlemen. I shall pause the podcast and we shall continue when we've fixed it. Welcome back, everyone. We had a slight technical difficulty, but we are over that now, hopefully. So, Professor J, what do you know about the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis?
Anything to do with quiches?
It might be. It could be the coronation quiche. Oh, God.
Could be. That's so topical. No, I don't.
You don't? Oh, it's where Martin Luther King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968.
Right. Okay.
And it's now the site of the American National Civil Rights Museum.
Right. Okay.
So, obviously, because of that, the man preaching in a language that's completely new is Martin Luther King.
And that's in Memphis?
Yes.
Right.
It is.
Is Memphis French?
I don't think so.
I just Lorraine is a region in France. I was just wondering.
But then Memphis is a city in Egypt. So.
That's very true.
Yes.
But then Egypt did not hold any American territories, although France did hold half.
No, that's true. Yes. Yeah. So the man preaching in a language that's completely new. Yeah. Probably he's referring to Martin Luther King and his revolutionary ideas that he was presenting. He could also be referring to people speaking in tongues, which is where people who believe in God start speaking gibberish for no apparent reason, and we're meant to be impressed by it.
Okay.
Right.
It's a wild. So it's more like a nursery rhyme.
Yes.
This sequence.
Yeah. Well, the bellhop that's hopping and bopping. Refers to something written by Martin Luther King. He wrote a paper called "The Misuse of Prayer," and he argued against treating God like a cosmic bellhop, by which he means that you shouldn't expect God to provide everything for you, even though I thought that was the Bible's teaching, but you should instead work hard and be intelligent on your own.
Okay.
So maybe a concierge might be a better image. Don't treat God like a concierge.
Okay.
The room with a view. Martin Luther King was killed just outside I think he was on the balcony of his room.
Right.
So he was taking the view from the room when he was shot by a sniper. This would be the shot ringing out to the spiritual groove.
Yeah. Okay, so let's crack on with the next lines, if that's all right. And if I die tonight, bury me in my favourite yellow patent leather shoes, and with a mummified cat and a cone-like hat that the caliphate forced on the Jews. Can you feel my heartbeat? Can you feel my heartbeat? So, who's famous for having yellow shoes?
Yeah, it does suggest he's talking about someone specific with the yellow patent leather shoes, but I couldn't find anything. Patent leather obviously is the very shiny type of leather. It's a coated leather.
Yeah, so the only thing that I could find about this was that there was a guy who was born in circa 1867 and lived to 1932, whose name was Major Charles B. Lowmiller, otherwise known as Humpazi. So he was a Sioux Indian, and Humpazi means yellow shoes. So that's the only thing I could find, which I think is consistent with, people getting shot for standing up for what they believe in. The other option is that there is, I'm going to try and pronounce it, Cypripedium parviflorum. The moccasin flower is also known as yellow lady's slipper. And it's an orchid that's native to North America, which could in fact either be, I don't know. So my guess is yellow patent leather shoes. It's either something regarding the Indians, the Native Americans, which is consistent with some of the conversation we've had here. But then it switches very quickly to mummified cats, which actually does tie in with what you were saying about Memphis.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Of course, they were often cats were often mummified and buried with their owners, people of high station.
In Egypt.
In Egypt, yes, not everywhere. Cats were held in high regard. They weren't quite sacred cows of the Hindu religion, but they were still very venerated. They were associated with the god Bastet, who was depicted as being part cat. So I think they were buried for luck as well as for sentimental reasons. I mean, it used to
not lucky for the case.
No, quite. Even worse, it used to be the case in England back in just post Middle Age. I think they used to, when they were building a new house, they'd seal the cats up in the walls. They'd seal the cats up in the walls to see off evil spirits.
Oh, wow.
Which obviously really, really pleased the cat, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cone-like hats.
Cone-like hats forced onto the Jews by the Caliphate. This is actually true. In 1850, the Caliph al-Mutawakkil decreed that Jews and also Christians within the Caliphate had to wear a sash called a zunna and a distinctive headscarfy thing called a tailassin. Subsequent to that, Jews were in medieval Europe and some of the Islamic world, Jews were forced to wear a Judenhut, which was a cone-shaped pointed hat, often white or yellow, so it would go with the patent leather shoes. That's good styling. And after 1215 in a lot of places in Europe, Jews were not allowed to appear outside their ghetto without wearing the Judenhut.
After lunch?
Yeah, that's it. No, the year 1250.
Okay.
So it's about the anti-Semitism which has existed for thousands of years. I've never really worked out what the basis for it is, but Jews have certainly been treated very badly over the years. And a lot of that's in the name of religion, of course.
Many wars have been raised. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Okay, let's crack on.
I think it's important that "Can you feel my heartbeat? Can you feel my heartbeat?"
Oh,
he's wondering if he's really still alive. I think. I mean, he's saying the
okay.
first line of that section is "If I die tonight," and now he's wondering,
That's right.
Have I died? Am I still here? I think there are quite a lot of parallels between this and Dig Lazarus Dig, to be honest, which I hadn't really noticed before.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, now we're going for the really crazy, the crazy verse. I'm going up for all of it. Hannah Montana does the African savannah. As the simulated rainy season begins, she curses the queue at Zulus and moves on to Amazonia. Prize with the dolphins, the Mai eat the pygmy eat the monkey has a gift that he's sending back to you. Look, here comes the missionary with his smallpox and flu, saving them savages with his Higgs boson blues. I'm driving my car down to Geneva.
Yeah. So, Hannah Montana. This was I've never seen it. Some kind of obviously Hannah Montana was played by Miley Cyrus before she was a pop star. She was a kid. Ido, something to do with exploring in Africa, is it? I think I really should look that up. Yeah.
The TV program Hannah Montana.
Yes.
I actually don't know. No, I don't. No, I mean.
Oh, okay.
No, she was an average teenage girl living a double life as a famous pop singer and trying to conceal her true identity from the public.
Well, there you go then.
Nothing to do with Africa.
No. Well, what I've read here on the internet, so it must be true. And what this person said is that Cave here is saying that Miley Cyrus played Hannah Montana as a role, and in the same way, celebrities' charity work in Africa is them playing a role. They're not really in for it. They're just wanting to look good. And the quote was, "Hannah cries for Africa, but doesn't truly feel the pain of poverty nor her own spiritual emptiness."
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Maybe I could just read the last piece as well. So, oh, let the damn day break. Rainy days always make me sad. Miley Cyrus floats in a swimming pool in Paluca Lake, and you're the best girl I ever had. Can't remember anything at all. So, as you said, he comes back to talk about Miley Cyrus, so the actor behind Hannah Montana, because at the time, so he does give a quote about this. Do you have that quote?
Yes, I do. Well, I have several quotes, but I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Okay, well, I'll give you the one that I heard about. So, I mean, I think the thing was that Miley Cyrus, the daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus, who was famous in the 90s, is a big singer. She was kind of famous because of Hannah Montana, but not massively famous. And now she's really, really famous after her song was big. So, and the reason that he chose that name, I mean, apart from Hannah Montana rhyming with Savannah and all that sort of thing, at that point she wasn't that famous, and he didn't know who she was. So he went to Madame Two Swords, which is a waxworks museum, and he saw that his children hugged the waxwork of Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus, and he had no idea who she was, and there was all these other famous people like Elizabeth Taylor or something like that, and he was just shocked that they gravitated towards her.
Yeah, it was Elizabeth Taylor in her role as Cleopatra.
Yeah, so because I don't think this translates very well anymore, because it was more that he chose a name who he thought would be a child star and then sort of fade away into obscurity, but actually she has transcended that and become, some might argue, godlike herself.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
yeah,
very, very
another
famous.
short quote about that from Digital Spy. They asked Cave if he would still have used her as a character had he known then what would happen to her. He replied, "Well, it would have been her because Hannah Montana rhymes with Savannah." That might sound flippant, but actually it's tiny things like that that propel the writing process along, little connecting of threads. But it is interesting. There is a danger in using famous people in your songs because you have no control over what they become. Yeah, for sure. But that's the same with all of songwriting, really, if you're writing about other people. So, yeah, he picked her because his kids preferred her to Elizabeth Taylor.
Exactly. It's like, if for our UK listeners, if you watchers, if you wrote a song about Rolf Harris or Jimmy Savile, probably wouldn't have aged very well. Jingle Jangle Jewelry and all that.
Jimmy Jangle's a great song. No one say anything bad about it. She curses the queue at the Zulus and moves on to Amazonia.
So Zulus, the toilets at the zoo, but of course it's referring to the tribe of Kenya, Zulus. Not sure.
It's more south than that, wasn't it?
I don't know. South Africa.
I don't know.
Well, they have their own territory, and it's the arbitrary countries that exist now are irrelevant.
Yes, and then moving on to Amazonia, which is the people taking pictures with African orphans and being feted for what wonderful work they're doing when they're just doing it as a publicity stunt in most cases. The Mau Mau ate the pygmy ate the monkey has a gift that he's sending back to you.
Yeah, you have to help me there.
The Mau Mau were an anti-colonial group in Kenya.
Okay.
In this case, they've swallowed up. They're either cannibalizing the pygmies, which is quite possible. I believe there was cannibalism at that time. The pygmies, which are small people, basically, in case that's not obvious, are sort of as helpless as monkeys towards these larger people attacking them. So the monkeys used to, I think what he's saying, the monkeys used to run the place. Then the pygmies moved in, pushed the monkeys out. Then the Mau Mau, normal-sized people, came along and pushed the pygmies out. But the line about the monkey being eaten also refers to one of the causes, theoretically, of AIDS, I believe, HIV. Wasn't it meant to have come from people eating monkeys originally? I think.
Yes, I don't know if it's true though, but it could well be.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
And then we sort of goes into more depth about how useless religion is. Look, here comes the missionary. He's come out there to save the souls of the indigenous peoples, but he's also brought smallpox and flu with them. So he's going to save these savages by causing them
Africa
to die.
affected by that? I thought that was mainly South America that was affected by.
Well, it was certainly North America as well.
Oh, really?
British brought smallpox to Native Americans, certainly. But I think it's anywhere where they haven't been exposed to these things.
Yeah.
Which people carry diseases with them across the sea, and what's happened there?
Yeah.
So I think he's strange because he is a religious man, but he is definitely in this song pointing out all the bad things that religion has caused. Well, not all of them, but it's quite a few. And I guess it's because that's the mindset he was put in with all the talk about the God particle. I should think.
Yeah. So it ends. Rainy days make me sad. Miley Cyrus floating in a pool in Toluca Lake, which is a neighborhood in LA, Los Angeles.
It's a very wealthy neighborhood.
Yeah.
Which I think is the point.
Yeah. Can't remember anything at all. That's the final line.
You're the best girl I ever had. Is he referring to Miley there? No, I don't think so. Don't know who he's referring to there.
Yeah.
Would you like one last quote about it?
Yes, please.
If I can find it. This is from the Red Hand files again. I'll cut out the first part because it's about the waxworks. Hold on. Yeah, he's saying after the waxworks incident in and Two Swords, his kids explained to him that Hannah Montana was the child self, that Miley Cyrus was the infanticidal adult self who literally became a wrecking ball that obliterated her younger persona. Presumably they didn't use those words as they were about 11. But that's what he said. And in his mind, the Miley Cyrus that floats in the swimming pool in the gated community of Toluca Lake is a statue made of wax. So he's saying it's a waxwork of her, not actually the actress.
Right. Okay.
She is neither dead nor alive. She bobs about in the cool water, circled by pink Amazonian dolphins, and melts under a terrible blank Californian sky like a pagan sacrifice to an Aztec sun god.
Who said that?
Nick Cave said that.
Wow. It's better than the lyrics.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Higgs Boson Blues was entirely improvised. Cave and his buddy Warren Ellis recorded it as they wrote the song. Didn't know the outcome, how long it would be, the trajectory. So they're kind of riffing off each other as they go along, which you can really feel in the song. It's not a fast song, but it's got that sort of kind of driving rhythm, which I like.
Oh, it's great musically, yeah.
Yeah, nice pounding rhythm. Though I'm sure they could have sped it up and done it in 3 minutes 45 rather than 7.
Yeah, probably.
55.
Add out all those words.
Yeah.
Lots of the notes, and you'd be good. Yeah, well,
all right.
there you go.
All righty. Go for another?
Let's.
So for our final song from Mr. Cave, we have chosen the song Hollywood, which is a 2019 record from the 17th studio album, Ghosteen. Let's dive in, right? It was written after the death of his son.
Yes.
2015. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, that whole album is about that. I mean, Ghosteen obviously is the ghost of a teen. He also sadly lost another son more recently.
Oh yeah.
He's not been the luckiest man in the world. So.
What happened to that one?
It was a son that he didn't know that well. Was it the drugs? I don't know, but yeah, he lost another one. I mean, no one should be predeceased by their children. So.
No, certainly not. All right, let's dive into some lyrics. The fires continued through the night. The kid with a bat face appeared at the window, then disappeared into the headlights. I was halfway to the Pacific coast. I had left you in your longing and your yearning like a ghost. So that's setting the scene.
Yeah. This is referring to some real fires, Californian wildfires, presumably the year before. Sorry, my research has not been as comprehensive as I would have liked on this one.
Well, interestingly, it does tie back to Miley Cyrus. So Miley Cyrus
Yes.
has had various on-off relationships with Liam Hemsworth, and after they were on and off for years and years, and after one of the California wildfires, they decided it was so terminal that they decided to get married. The result of their house burning down as one of those wildfires.
Right. Well, I guess you can
I
react like
digress.
that when you can just untrouser the money for another house
Yeah.
on the spot. Most people would have been despairing rather than getting married. But yeah, it wasn't a nice situation at all, and we're obviously seeing more and more of this as the world disintegrates. Not just in California, in plenty of places. Australia was also very badly hit. It's worrying, I'd say.
So who's the kid with the bat face?
This, I believe, is it's not a direct reference, but it's an allusion to a line from Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. A woman drew her long black hair out tight and fiddled whisper music on those strings, and bats with baby faces in the violet light. And I didn't cut and paste the last line of that story. Yeah, but I think it's referring to that. It's just a sort of thing as he's driving past. It's because he's driving again. He does a lot of driving in his songs. He's halfway to the Pacific coast. Presumably, he started somewhere in California because he's very much in the fires during the song. So it's not like he started in New York and was halfway to the Pacific coast, which would be somewhere stuck in the middle. He'd left. I'd left you in your longing and your yearning like a ghost. I believe that's referring to his mourning wife.
Right.
You're wrong.
Yes. Yes. Okay, more words. There's little room for wonder now, and little room for wildness too. We crawl into our wounds. I'm nearly all the way to Malibu. I'm going to buy me a house up in the hills with a tear-shaped pool and a gun that kills, because they say there is a cougar that roams these parts with a terrible engine of wrath for a heart. She is white and rare and full of all kinds of harm, and stalks a perimeter all day long, but at night lays trembling in my arms.
Yeah, it's quite poetic, this.
Yeah.
Little room for wonder now and little room for wildness. I guess he's just saying that since the tragedy, life grows smaller when you're in a bad place.
Yeah.
Losing a sense of wonder is very much part of that. So I've been through quite a lot of bad times in my life, and you certainly do. And you certainly don't feel like being wild either. Crawl into our wounds. It's subsuming oneself in one's grief, I think.
Yeah.
Nearly all the way to Malibu. Malibu, of course, another place in California. Known for surfing, is it? I think. It's one of the Beach Boys.
Excuse me. I think it's most known for sort of hideout of very expensive, sort of large beach houses where all the rich and famous live.
Yes, it's also a song by Hull that I actually quite like, which is rare for their songs.
It's also a delicious drink. Delicious and refreshing drink.
Not overly keen on that. So he's going to buy himself a house up in the hills, which, as you say, is probably it's obviously not a beach house, but it's up in the hills, but it's probably a nice fancy house. With a tear-shaped pool, because they're crying. He wants that imagery. And a gun that kills. Well, everyone in America has to have a gun. It's a law. So, but it sounds like he's saying he wants it because of this cougar that's roaming this part. But then he conflates the cougar with his wife, trembling in his arms. So presumably he doesn't want a gun that's going to kill her. So I don't know why he says he needs the gun unless he's talking about suicide. The cougar the cougar is was actually a real animal. Are you aware of this, Professor J?
No.
The cougar was called P22. That was its classification. It was a real mountain lion, which is what they are, that settled in Griffith Park in Los Angeles, and was actually really popular with people. It was famously captured prowling along underneath the Hollywood sign illuminated above her. I think it was her. Not sure. And so this thing was wandering around, although Griffith Park isn't next to Malibu as far as I'm aware, but he's referring to this anyway. Unfortunately, the P22 was hit by a car last year and had to be euthanized.
I thought they were kind of fairly common, these sort of mountain cats.
You'd think so, but the picture of the cat underneath the Hollywood sign, it's got a collar on, so it's obviously been tracked, so it's presumably
right
a special one that they were tracking to find out information about it. What are you doing, Professor Dogger? Oh,
what are you talking about? Cats. So she's
yeah.
Crazy ferret, crazy mad ferret. I did see a cougar type thing in Spain, southern Spain, one time.
Oh yeah, nice.
Climbing up some sort of mountainy things. So
I've never seen a big cat live at all. But,
It wasn't that big. Probably the size of your dog.
All right. She's a big girl. Big strong girl is Professor Dogger. Yeah. These lines about the cougar with the terrible engine of wrath for a heart were the first words he wrote for the album.
Right.
He says, quote about this: "It was clear to me that in those 7 tormented lines there was enough to build a record on, and this verse became the central image of the record, and the engine of wrath that powered through the epic song Hollywood. Both Susie and I were genuinely saddened to hear about the euthanizing of P22. The life and death of this magnificent beast was one of the countless impossible stories that are woven into the melancholy fabric of Los Angeles. Indeed, the death of P22 seemed to break the city's heart, as if it had lost an essential part of its untamed and mystical soul." So, obviously, the cat was quite important in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we said, he's comparing the cat which paces around to his wife, who's got a terrible engine of wrath. She's angry about losing their child. She's white and rare and full of all kinds of harm. Well, okay. Yeah, I think it's a very sad song.
Yeah, it is. It is. So the next line is, it's repeated a lot, right? So I'm just waiting now for my time to come, waiting for my place in the sun, for peace to come. He's hiding his wounds. He's nearly all the way to Malibu, and then repetition of a lot of that. I'll probably start here. Oh, babe, we're on the run. We're on the run. We're on the run. Halfway down the Pacific coast. I left you sleeping like a ghost in your wounds. Darling, your dreams are your greatest part. I carry them with me in my heart. Darling, your dreams are your greatest part. Somewhere, don't know. So I've sort of cherry picked.
Yes, yeah, that's fair enough. I'm not entirely sure whether these lines are directed at his wife still or the dead child.
Yeah,
perhaps both.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that your dreams are your greatest part. I carry them with me in my heart. That must be the son, because he's gone, so he has to carry them in his heart. So, yeah, he knows his time will come one day soon. He's waiting for peace to come. He's waiting for death to reunite him with his son.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so now I'm standing on the shore. All the animals roam the beaches. Sea creatures rise out of the sea, and I'm standing on the shore. Everyone begins to run. The kid drops his bucket and spade and climbs into the sun.
Yeah, this is something which did happen during the California wildfires. All the wild animals trying to escape pretty much ended up on the beach.
Right.
You had all kinds of things which you'd never see on the beach normally, just hanging out because they knew it was the only place they could be safe from the fire.
Right.
So that's why the animals are roaming the beaches. Sea creatures rise out of the sea. Obviously, they wouldn't be coming on the beach to be safe because they kind of need water. But it could also be a sort of reference to the apocalyptic parts of the Book of Revelations, because he likes a biblical quote. Excuse me, Professor Dog has just thrown my glasses case on the floor for no reason. So yeah, it could be sort of Leviathan coming out of the sea to signal the end of days. He's standing on the shore, everyone begins to run, fire getting closer.
Yep.
And a kid drops his bucket and spade and climbs into the sun, which means he dies, I believe.
Yep. Yep. So next verse, Kisa had a baby, but the baby died. Goes to the villagers, says, my baby's sick. Villagers shake their heads and say to her, better bury your baby in the forest quick. It's a long way to find peace of mind, peace of mind. So
this is
Kisa?
Oh, this is a well-known Buddhist fable, parable maybe. Which is rare. This is rare. But we've seen a lot of Christian imagery from Nick Cave. This is a story from Buddhism. Kisa Gotami was her name. She was a woman from an ancient city called Savatthi, who lived in the same period as the Buddha. She loses her child, stillborn presumably, but Laurisch doesn't go through the stages of coping with grief, of acceptance. She won't accept that her baby's dead, and tries to get help from her fellow villagers. So, sorry, he's dead. Better bury your baby in the forest quick, which sounds heartless, but
So my understanding of the Kisa thing was a little bit different. So she went to see Buddha.
We haven't got
Buddha says, okay, that's why then. Carry on then.
Yeah, so the villagers say you better bury your baby quick, which is presumably for health reasons, so you don't leave corpses lying around. And then we get the refrain, it's a long way to find peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay, so let's
dive
into
it's hard to, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so Kisa went to the mountain and asked the Buddha, my baby's sick. Buddha said, don't cry. Go to each house, collect a mustard seed, but only from a house where no one's died. Kisa went to each house in the village. My baby's getting sicker, poor Kisa cried. Kisa never collected one mustard seed because every house someone had died. I'm going to push on. Kisa sat down in the old village square. She hugged her baby and cried and cried. She said, everybody is always losing somebody. They walked into the forest and buried her child. Everyone's losing somebody. It's a long way to find peace of mind, and I'm waiting now for my time to come, waiting for peace to come. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fable, parabellum. That the Buddha says, yes, I can get your baby back. Just go and get a white mustard seed from a house where no one's died. And of course, she goes to all the houses and everyone's got someone who's died. And that's the meaning behind that story. And then it feels to me that at the end of it, he's, rather than at the beginning of the song where he's getting a gun and there's a cougar and he's kind of wanting to end it all, it sounds that after listening to these words from Buddha, he is finding a path to his peace.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what happened in the original story. After Kisa finds that no one's got a mustard seed because someone's died everywhere, she goes back to the Buddha, accepts that her child is dead, and becomes his disciple, and enters the first stage of enlightenment, which isn't mentioned in Nick Cave's version. So
come on, Nick Cave. You can squeeze a few more words in there.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. So I think you're right. It is about acceptance, which doesn't bring happiness, but it brings realism, I suppose. The final lines of the album, the a long way to find peace of mind, I'm waiting for my time to come. They echo the closing lyrics of the first song on the album, which is Spinning Song, which ends, peace will come, a peace will come, the peace will come in time, the time will come, a time will come, a time will come for us. So he's thinking about being reunited with his child.
Yeah.
But he's not.
Yeah.
He's accepted it and he's not thinking about using his gun and his cougar. No. And you're right, the song does change completely, 8 minutes 30-ish when...
Because it's 14 minutes long, right?
Absolutely, yes. Nice short one. But when the kid drops his bucket and spade and climbs into the sun, then it stops with a doo-dump and goes into a different... Yeah. And that reminds me very much of a song I never finished for our band called Seventh Wave, which did pretty much the same. I'm not saying Nick Cave ripped me off, but no, obviously Nick Cave's never heard our song because no one's heard our song.
Yet.
But yeah, very much reminded me of that. So yeah, it's a, and I think we should perhaps point out that over the course of the however many songs we did, 7 songs I think it was, how the music changed. Starts off with being very dense guitars and things, and then it ends in sort of ambient electronica. So he's definitely changed over the years.
Yeah, synths, loops, all that sort of stuff.
I think that probably coincided with Warren Ellis coming into the band. He was very into his loops and things.
I'd never listened to Nick Cave before, let's face it. But this album, Ghosteen, really has widespread critical acclaim, several perfect scores, and is the highest rated album of 2019, as well as the second highest rated album of the 2010s on Metacritic.
It's an amazing listen. You can just put it on in the background on repeat, and you wouldn't get sick of it at all. It's a beautiful album. Just think if I can find a quote here. Yes. In the song Ghosteen, a man is saying goodbye to a sleeping woman. He's leaving, heading somewhere we don't know where. Hollywood is a continuation of this song. It is the leaving, the driving away, heading out of LA along the Pacific coast to Malibu. Malibu is on fire. We recorded most of the record at Woodshed Studios in Malibu later in 2018 in a single recording room surrounded by an Eden-like garden. The control desk was inside the room, so visiting musicians, friends and dogs all sat in the same room in which we recorded. Warren and I stayed at the house attached to the studio, perched on the Valley Hill. It was an extraordinarily intense and magical time for both of us. A few weeks after we left the studio, the Malibu fires swept through the area. The studio itself remained mysteriously unharmed, but the house, the beautiful garden and the surrounding homes were incinerated. It was devastating for us all. The studio is now back up and running and will always hold a very special place in our hearts. So, he was in the area, just luckily a bit early. And one last quote from Nick Cave about the lyrics in this. The kid drops his bucket and spade and climbs into the sun are such words. 2 short lines that draw to an abrupt and brutal halt the main body of the epic song Hollywood. I can understand why these are your favourite lyrics. They are a lovely image. However, look at them now. These lines are perhaps not so obscure, and that wanting to take away their power by attaching my own meaning to them, their intent seems fairly. Professor Douglas, wait. They mean the child stopped what he was doing and died. The child stopped what he was doing and died is also a beautiful line, perhaps a better line, but sometimes some truths are too severe to live on a page or in a song or in a heart. Hence, metaphor can create a merciful sense of distance from the cruel idea or the unspeakable truth and allow it to exist within us as a kind of poetic radiance, as a work of art. So, yeah, I think his writing is absolutely beautiful. He has such a command of the English language, which is something I'm supposed to have but don't. Because I studied it for years. Yeah, I very much enjoy Nick Cave's lyrics. I find some of his music quite challenging to listen to. But did you listen to the Carney, by the way?
I did. I
Did you
quite
enjoy
liked
it?
it. I did. I liked the little, this sort of dystonic. Yeah, that's the word. The sort of, this let's say,
Ding,
atypical
ding, 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 ding.
tune over
Yeah, and it's
the.
only 8 minutes as well.
It's a short one.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't like all his music, but I do think his lyrics are always brilliant. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly looking forward to the next Bad Seed album, which I think is meant to be out at the end of this year. He's doing another one.
Really? Something going on.
Indeed.
20.
So I think that concludes our coverage of Nick Cave for now. In 20 years' time, when we're reaching for something to do, we might revisit some more of his songs, because I'm sure you'll all still be listening now. Not entirely sure I'll still be alive then, but yes. So it's your choice next, Professor J. Who are we looking at? I've just realised. Sorry, don't say, because I forgot. We're doing our exciting video interlude instead, aren't we?
We are.
So our next, you will find out what Professor J has chosen at the end of next episode, which is going to be a short little episode where we're covering just one song, and we're going to be discussing the video as well. This is something we're doing between each set of lyrics set of bands that we choose. Okay.
That's the clue. The one I'm choosing are appearing at this venue.
Oh, right.
Later this year.
Yes. So that'll
there are current bands.
Research there. You can go down the rabbit hole of what band Professor J's picking. But next time we will be discussing the video of Bullets by the band Archive. That will be fun for everyone, and you'll want to come and leave a like and subscribe. And of course, you get to see Professor Dogger being an absolute idiot behind me, which is, of course, the main selling point of this podcast. So, anything to add, Professor J?
No. See. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Like, subscribe. Ciao. Do this. Oh, it's barking now.